Hello and welcome back to the Self-Actualization in the Age of Crisis Chapter Summary Series. I'm your host, Ron Rivers, and today we're going to be discussing Chapter 3, Self-Changing Systems, Decentralized Autonomous Organizations, or DAOs. So decentralized autonomous organizations are commonly referred to as DAOs, and that's how I'm going to refer to them for the remainder of the video. And DAOs take a wide variety of forms and shapes. They can be everything from investment clubs to just community organizations. Some DAOs have bought sports teams. So there's a lot of different things they empower, but there's some commonalities across the board. All DAOs represent membership through some form of tokenization. Now, that tokenization can be purely speculative, like your voting power depends on the quantity of tokens you have. There can be separations. So, like, for example, a very popular one is the Moloch DAO, where you have two different tokens to represent your identity and your voting share. And there's a lot of, a wide variety of different mechanisms to kind of support this organization. But ultimately what they are is a community of like-minded individuals who come together to pool resources to support a specific initiative. DAO members are typically considered stakeholders, but to what degree they have a say is really up to the individual and specific DAO. I want to emphasize there's a ton of different ways to organize it. While they're mostly democratic in their organization, there's a tremendous amount of flexibility of what that looks like. So I'll give you one example. There's a protocol I'm very a big fan of. It's called the Metropolis Protocol, which essentially allows for organizations to have different rule sets of governance, of interaction and coordination within the larger umbrella. So you might have one, pod is how they're referred to. That's a full, representative democracy. You might have one that's a direct democracy, and you might have one that's they call the dictator, where you have a manager managing teams of people within the DAO. But what is ultimately empowering about the DAO is these are really internet native organizations where smart contracts dictate the interactions between people. And why that's really important is that the code becomes law. So it becomes this hyper transparent way of kind of collaborating together that also automates a lot of the ancillary functions that go along with standard collaboration. Ultimately, what I love about DAOs is it frees more people to kind of work and collaborate in the frameworks that they desire to. And then, even beyond that, it really allows people to work on the things that they want to work on through the means of their own creation, their own imagination. In many ways, DAOs reject the traditional hierarchical kind of top-down dictation of labor in favor of a more ground-up approach. For example, like the person who has the expertise and knows what to do next can become the leader. I also want to emphasize that compared to the traditional, for example, corporation or state, those organizations are really like invite only, right? Like your participation is reliant on someone else approving your participation. In many ways, that might be nepotism, it might be a highly competitive environment, whatever the case may be. So to that extent, DAOs offer a framework of cooperation with a very low barrier to entry. And of course, that varies by DAO, right? But the best DAOs have great processes of onboarding and kind of engaging new users, people of interest, and either providing them a path to contribute right away if they possess the necessary skill set, or alternatively, providing them a path to education to develop their skills around the needs of the DAO. And what's really fascinating about that is when we consider the past, right? Human beings have always needed to kind of fit the structure of society, right? We've inherited a past that we had no say in crafting, but it demanded much of us. Whereas the DAO, we really empower the individual to kind of create in their own direction and do that alongside others who share their vision and values. And if there's skill gaps there, the DAO provides the pathways to kind of minimize those gaps and get people into the productive contribution process. Now, DAOs, like any organization, must be sustainable. But the great news is there's plenty of DAO examples already where DAOs can generate surplus through the value they provide. So the community creates projects, and those projects over time, whether they be virtual or physical, generate surpluses that then funnel back into the community. Ultimately, you can think of a DAO as a much more flat organization where the majority of capital and excess, the surplus, is not funneling to the top. It is instead funneling into the community and then being transferred back to the users. So it supports a more regenerative ecosystem of exchange that is sorely missing and really necessary to transcend the crisis. I mean, again, the hierarchical organization of transaction, of production, is in many ways directly responsible for the crisis and provides no alternative but the present trajectory. Ultimately, I want to emphasize that DAOs are communities, and I really want to hit that again. It's about like-minded individuals cooperating towards a shared vision. But what a DAO does that is really kind of previously unavailable, it empowers the individual who's born into the world to be born a stakeholder instead of a cog in a crumbling machine.